my son said proudly. My wife put her in her place so she'd finally shut up. Evelyn Renford froze mid-step in the hallway of her son's home. The voice, warm, laughing, casual, floated from the living room where Elias entertained his friends. The mug in her hand trembled, spilling hot tea down her wrist. She barely noticed the burn. 67 years of life hadn't prepared her for hearing those words. Not from her Elias. Not about her. Through the crack in the door, she could see her son's back, his shoulders shaking with laughter as the others joined in. Lena, her daughter-in-law, sat perched beside him, her slender hand resting possessively on his knee. What happened next? Someone asked. Mom kept insisting we needed her opinion on the house renovation. Elias continued, going on about how Dad would have wanted things different. Lena's perfect smile never wavered. I simply reminded her that her name isn't on the deed anymore. She looked so shocked, like she'd forgotten signing it over last year. More laughter. Evelyn's breathing quickened. She hadn't signed anything. She would remember that, wouldn't she? Lately, her memory felt patchy. Things moved around the house. Conversations she thought she'd had apparently never happened. Elias's voice dropped lower. Honestly, it's been getting worse. The forgetfulness, the accusations. Lena's been a saint. Have you considered Silver Pines? A woman's voice now, Beatrix, the doctor's wife. They have excellent memory care facilities. We're looking into options, Lena replied smoothly. Evelyn backed away silently, tea dripping forgotten onto the hardwood floor she'd once chosen with Harold, her late husband, the floor in the home they'd built together. The home Elias had insisted she move into after Harold's heart attack 3 years ago. You'll never be alone, Mom, he'd promised. She retreated to her small annex bedroom, closing the door with shaking hands. On her nightstand sat a photo of Harold, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, salt and pepper beard, the laugh lines she'd loved to trace. They think I'm losing my mind, she whispered to the photo. Maybe I am. But something sharper than doubt cut through her confusion. Lena's perfect smile. Elias's proud voice. My wife put her in her place. Evelyn looked around the room, once a guest bedroom, now her entire world. Her books were gone, replaced with simplified large print novels she'd never chosen. Her jewelry box was lighter than it should be. Even her clothes seemed fewer, more basic. She opened her journal, hidden beneath her mattress, and wrote with a trembling hand. Today, I heard the truth. They want me gone. But why? What do they gain? She closed the book and tucked it away, a seed of resistance taking root where fear had been. Something was very wrong in this house, and it wasn't her mind. Evelyn wiped her eyes, straightened her cardigan, and made a decision. If they thought she was losing her grip on reality, perhaps that was exactly what she should let them believe. For now. Before the fractures appeared, the Renfords were considered local royalty in Millfield. Harold Renford had been principal at the high school for 30 years. Kids who couldn't afford college went anyway because Principal Renford found scholarships. Troubled teens turned their lives around because he believed they could. Evelyn had taught piano, filling their home with music and students who became extended family. Their Christmas parties were legendary, everyone invited, no one forgotten. Elias grew up watching his parents' generosity, absorbing their values like sunlight. He'd been a serious child who became a thoughtful man, an architect who designed affordable housing alongside luxury projects. The pride of Millfield. When he married Lena Winters 8 years ago, the town celebrated. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she seemed perfect for him. A social worker who shared his passion for helping others, who laughed at his dry jokes, who charmed everyone from bank presidents to gas station attendants. You've done well, son, Harold had whispered at the wedding reception, embracing his new daughter-in-law with genuine affection. The first 2 years had been golden. Sunday dinners at the elder Renford's home, holidays filled with traditions old and new, Lena organizing fundraisers that broke records, the young couple appearing in the local paper for their community work. Then Harold collapsed during a school board meeting. The funeral brought the town to a standstill. Former students flew in from across the country. The mayor declared a day of remembrance. Through it all, Lena stood beside Evelyn, handling arrangements, fielding calls, making sure everyone was fed and comforted. "We can't leave you alone in this big house," Elias insisted afterward. "It's too much to maintain." The solution seemed perfect: convert their detached garage into a comfortable annex for Evelyn. She could maintain her independence while being close to family. "It's what Dad would have wanted," Elias said. The construction took 6 months. Lena supervised every detail: the accessible shower, the sunny reading nook, the small kitchen where Evelyn could still bake her famous cookies. "You've thought of everything," Evelyn marveled on moving day. Lena embraced her. "Your family. We take care of family." The first year passed pleasantly enough. Evelyn joined them for dinner 3 times a week. She tended her reduced but still lovely garden. She kept a few piano students, mostly the grandchildren of her original ones. Looking back, Evelyn could now pinpoint when things began to change. It started with small comments about her memory. "Mom, we told you about the dinner party last week. Don't you remember?" "Evelyn, dear, you've already taken your pills this morning. I watched you. That vase has always been blue, not green. Your memory is playing tricks." Each correction came with a sympathetic smile, a gentle touch on her arm, and each time, Elias watched with growing concern. Town functions became uncomfortable. Evelyn would arrive to find she wasn't on the list, but Lena called to say you weren't feeling well enough to attend. Friends stopped calling. Lena mentioned you get overwhelmed by too many visits. Her garden tools vanished. "You left them out in the rain, Mom. They rusted beyond repair." At her annual checkup, she found Lena already in the examination room. "I hope you don't mind," her daughter-in-law said sweetly. "Elias is worried about some behavioral changes." The doctor asked questions that felt like traps. Had she experienced confusion? Mood swings? Paranoid thoughts? "I'm perfectly fine," Evelyn insisted. Later that night, she overheard Lena on the phone through the thin wall of the annex. "The doctor agrees something's not right." "Yes, early signs, potentially." "No, she wouldn't cooperate with the cognitive tests." "I know. It's heartbreaking for Elias." Evelyn's hands clenched into fists. The woman she'd welcomed into her family was systematically dismantling her life and somehow convincing everyone, including Elias, that it was for her own good. But why? Evelyn woke at dawn, her mind clearer than it had been in months. The realization that Lena, perhaps even Elias, was actively working against her brought a strange sort of focus. She opened her dresser to find her favorite blue cardigan missing. Again. Small things kept vanishing, only to reappear in odd places days later. Her reading glasses. Her address book. The silver teaspoon Harold had brought from Scotland. "Proving I'm forgetful," she murmured, writing it down in her hidden journal. She dressed carefully and walked to her tiny kitchen. The tomatoes she'd bought yesterday gone from the counter. The grocery receipt also gone. The clock read 6:30 a.m. Too early for Lena to be awake. Moving silently, Evelyn slipped out of her annex and across the dewy lawn to the main house. She used her key, the one thing they hadn't taken yet, and entered through the mudroom. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Evelyn moved toward it, pulled open the door, and there they were, her tomatoes, arranged in a ceramic bowl as if they'd always belonged to the main house. She reached for them, then stopped. Better to leave evidence untouched. A floorboard creaked overhead. Someone was awake. Evelyn moved to the study, once Harold's sanctuary, now Elias's home office. The door was ajar. Inside, she could see Lena hunched over the desk, her silk robe falling off one shoulder as she rifled through papers. "Property tax assessment? Insurance policy," Lena muttered, sorting documents into piles. Evelyn pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. What was her daughter-in-law doing with financial papers at dawn? Lena's phone buzzed. "Yes?" she answered quietly. Evelyn strained to hear. "Everything's on schedule. The doctor's report helps." "No, he doesn't suspect anything. She's harmless, just forgetful. Elias believes everything I tell him." Ice slid down Evelyn's spine. She'd known, of course, but hearing it stated so baldly, "she's harmless," made the betrayal freshly painful. A toilet flushed upstairs. Elias was awake. Evelyn retreated, slipping back to her annex before anyone could discover her. Inside, she leaned against the door, heart racing. That afternoon, Lena appeared at her door with a basket of muffins. "Thought you might like a treat," she said, her smile dazzling as always. "Oh, I borrowed those lovely tomatoes you had. Hope you don't mind. I'm making Elias's favorite pasta sauce." Evelyn smiled back, the expression feeling stiff on her face. "How thoughtful of you. By the way," Lena set the basket down, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. "Elias mentioned you were confused about some mail yesterday? The water bill? Was I?" Evelyn feigned uncertainty. In truth, she'd asked about the missing water bill because she always paid her share promptly. "It's okay." Lena patted her hand. "We've taken care of all the utilities now. One less thing for you to worry about." "How convenient," Evelyn murmured. Lena's eyes narrowed slightly, then relaxed. "We're family. We look out for each other." After she left, Evelyn checked the mail slot by her front door. Empty, as it had been for weeks now. All her correspondence now went directly to the main house to make sure nothing important gets missed, Elias had explained. That night, Evelyn waited until midnight, then crept across to the recycling bins. She dug through junk mail and newspapers until she found what she was looking for, her bank statement, torn in half but still legible. Under the dim light of her bathroom, she pieced it together. 3 withdrawals she'd never made, each for exactly $500, each on the first of the month. "Keeping me on an allowance from my own money," she whispered, trembling with anger rather than fear. She added this to her growing list of evidence in the journal. Then she hid it in a new spot inside the hollowed-out devotional book Harold had given her on their 40th anniversary. Something was happening beyond simple cruelty. Something systematic. Something planned. But what was the endgame? Evelyn fell asleep clutching Harold's photo, wishing his wisdom could guide her through this maze of betrayal. "Did you take your medication this morning?" Lena asked, barging into Evelyn's annex without knocking. Evelyn looked up from her book. "I did." "Are you sure? The pill case for Monday is still full." Lena held up the plastic organizer Evelyn had filled just yesterday. But the pills inside weren't right. Her blood pressure medication was there, yes, but the small white tablet for her mild arthritis was missing, replaced by something larger and blue. "That's not," Evelyn began. "Not what?" Lena's voice remained gentle, but her eyes hardened. "Not your medication? Evelyn, we've been through this. The doctor changed your prescription last month. Remember the appointment?" There had been no such appointment. Evelyn was certain. Yet doubt crept in, the kind of doubt that had become her constant companion. "Here." Lena tipped the pills into her palm. "Take them now so we don't forget." Evelyn accepted the water glass. But as Lena turned to adjust the curtains, she slipped the blue pill into her robe pocket. The others, she swallowed. "Good," Lena beamed. "Elias will be so pleased you're cooperating." After she left, Evelyn examined the blue pill. No markings, no numbers. She dropped it into a small envelope and wrote the date. That afternoon, she felt strangely drowsy. The room tilted when she stood. By dinner time, she could barely keep her eyes open. "You don't look well, Mom," Elias commented when she stumbled into the main house. "I'm fine," she insisted, though her words slurred slightly. "Maybe we should skip the community meeting tonight," Lena suggested. "Someone should stay with your mother." "No," Evelyn managed. "You both go. I just need rest." They exchanged a look, the kind of look parents give over a difficult child's head. "If you're sure," Elias said finally. The moment their car pulled away, Evelyn forced herself to stay awake. She staggered to the main house and tried calling Beatrix. The doctor's wife might know what the blue pill was. But the phone didn't work. The line was dead. She tried her cell phone next, but found it locked with a passcode she'd never set. When she pressed the emergency call button, nothing happened. Panic rose in her throat. They'd isolated her completely. Half crawling back to the annex, she collapsed on her bed. The drowsiness was overwhelming now. Before succumbing, she managed to write in her journal, "They're drugging me." She woke the next morning to Lena's concerned face. "Elias." "She's awake!" Lena called. "Oh, Evelyn, you gave us such a fright." Elias appeared, unshaven and haggard. "Mom, thank God. You've been unconscious since we found you last night." "Found me?" Evelyn's mouth felt stuffed with cotton. "You were on the floor," Lena explained. "We think you fell. The doctor says it might be a reaction to your medication." "Or she missed doses," Elias added. "You haven't been taking them regularly, have you, Mom?" The accusation in his tone cut through her fog. "I take what's given to me," she said carefully. Lena and Elias exchanged that look again. "We're going to have a home health aide check on you," Elias decided. "Just until you're steady again." "That's not necessary. It's not optional, Mom." Elias's voice hardened. "We can't have you hurting yourself." The aide arrived that afternoon, Margot, a stern-faced woman who watched Evelyn swallow each pill and reported back to Lena hourly. That night, Evelyn's television mysteriously locked onto a single-channel home shopping. When she tried to change it, nothing happened. "The remote's broken," Margot said, not looking up from her phone. "Happens with age." The next day, Evelyn discovered her annex door wouldn't unlock. "Safety measure," Elias explained through the window. "Just until you're better." By the end of the week, Evelyn realized the full extent of her captivity. Her medications left her foggy but not unconscious. She'd learned to hide the blue pill under her tongue. Her phone remained locked. Her door opened only when Lena or Margot decided it should. Even her closet had been organized, most of her clothes removed, replaced with shapeless, institutional-looking outfits. "We're protecting you, Evelyn," Lena insisted. "You get confused sometimes." When she protested, Elias sighed heavily. "Mom, she's trying her best. Maybe you're just under stress." The doubt returned, heavier this time. Was she imagining the systematic dismantling of her independence? Was her mind truly failing? No. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, thin, pale, but with clear eyes that reflected a terrible certainty. "I'm not crazy. This is happening, and I need to find out why before it's too late." 3 days after being effectively imprisoned in her own annex, Evelyn discovered that Margot took a 30-minute nap every afternoon around 2. The revelation came when she heard the soft, rhythmic snoring from the armchair where the aide was supposed to be monitoring her for safety. Today, Evelyn timed it. The moment Margot's chin dropped to her chest, she began counting. 1001. 1002. By 1030, the snores were steady. Evelyn slipped from her bed, careful to avoid the creaking floorboard near the window. She'd need every second of these precious 30 minutes. The attic access panel in her closet ceiling had been Elias's concession when they'd built the annex, a small storage space for seasonal items and keepsakes she couldn't bear to part with when downsizing. "You'll never use it, Mom," he'd said, "but if it makes you happy." Now, she dragged her desk chair silently across the carpet and positioned it beneath the panel. At 67, with muscles weakened by whatever they'd been giving her, the climb felt like scaling a mountain. The panel slid aside with a soft scrape. Dust immediately filled her nostrils, threatening a sneeze that would wake Margot. Evelyn pressed her sleeve against her nose, fighting the urge. Hoisting herself up with trembling arms, she squirmed into the cramped space. Cobwebs clung to her hair, and the heat was stifling, but freedom, even this small taste, energized her. Boxes surrounded her, neatly labeled in her own handwriting. Christmas ornaments. Summer clothes. Harold's teaching awards. And there, pushed against the back wall, was the chest. Unlike the cardboard boxes, this was solid oak with tarnished brass fittings. A simple word was burned into the lid. Private. Harold's secret chest. The one thing he'd kept solely to himself during their 45 years of marriage. "A man needs one mystery," he'd always said when she'd asked about it. Even from the woman he loves completely. She'd respected his privacy, assuming it contained mementos from before they'd met, perhaps from an old love or a painful memory. Now, she realized it might hold something far more valuable, truth untouched by Lena's manipulations. The chest wasn't locked. Harold had trusted her that much. The hinges protested as she raised the lid, releasing the scent of cedar and old paper. Inside lay a jumble of items. Newspaper clippings about the school. His father's pocket watch. A stack of letters tied with twine. And beneath it all, a small metal lockbox. Evelyn lifted it carefully. Unlike the chest, this was secured with a combination lock. She tried their anniversary, no luck. Their wedding date, nothing. Elias's birthday, the lock remained stubbornly closed. She was about to give up when inspiration struck. The day they'd met the faculty mixer at Millfield College, where a young music teacher had spilled punch on a nervous new principal. The 14th of September, 2058. The lock clicked open. Inside lay an envelope and a small key. The envelope was sealed, with a single line written across the front in Harold's neat handwriting. If pain returns, trust no mask of kindness. Truth hides in control. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, directions to a safety deposit box at Millfield Community Bank and a list of its contents. Property deeds. Insurance policies. Harold's will, the real one. And a warning. Watch for the vultures when age comes. They circle with smiles. He had known. Somehow, Harold had anticipated this, perhaps not Lena specifically, but the vulnerability that came with aging. The key would open the safety deposit box, but how could she get to the bank when she couldn't even leave the annex? Footsteps below interrupted her thoughts. Margot was awake. Evelyn quickly replaced everything except the key and envelope, which she tucked into her cardigan pocket. She slid the chest back and squirmed toward the access panel. Too late. Margot's voice came from directly below. Mrs. Renford? Where are you? Panic threatened to overwhelm her. If they discovered she'd been in the attic, they'd seal it off too. The aide's footsteps moved toward the bathroom. Evelyn seized her chance, sliding the panel aside and lowering herself with as much care as her trembling arms allowed. The chair wobbled beneath her feet. She'd just replaced the panel when Margot reappeared. There you are. What are you doing with that chair? Evelyn patted her hair, now covered with dust and cobwebs. Just trying to reach my summer scarves. I get so chilly with the air conditioning. Suspicion darkened Margot's face. You shouldn't be climbing at your age. That's how accidents happen. You're right, Evelyn said, infusing her voice with frail contrition. I wasn't thinking clearly. Perhaps I need to rest? The suggestion worked. Margot helped her to bed, smugly efficient, never noticing the key and envelope now hidden in Evelyn's pillowcase. That night, as the house slept, Evelyn read Harold's warning again by the dim light filtering through her curtains. Truth hides in control. Her late husband had left her a lifeline. Now she just needed a way to reach it. We need to record your symptoms for the doctor, Lena announced, placing a notebook on Evelyn's bedside table. Margot will write down anything unusual that happens during her shifts. Evelyn nodded meekly, her gaze fixed on the floor. Whatever helps. Lena seemed almost disappointed by the lack of resistance. I'm glad you're being reasonable. Elias was worried you'd fight us on this. I'm tired of fighting, Evelyn whispered. It wasn't entirely a lie. After Lena left, Margot settled into the armchair with her phone. Don't try anything, she warned. I'm watching. Evelyn curled on her side, facing away from the aide. Beneath her blanket, her fingers worked at a loose thread in her nightgown's hem. After 20 minutes of subtle picking, she'd created a small tear. Margot? She called, her voice deliberately weak. I think I've snagged my nightgown on something. Could you check if there's a safety pin in the bathroom? The aide sighed heavily, but set down her phone and disappeared into the bathroom. In those precious seconds, Evelyn reached under her mattress and retrieved the small voice recorder she'd found in Harold's chest, an old model he'd used for dictating school memos. She'd discovered it still worked, with half its battery life remaining. She pressed record and slipped it into her cardigan pocket hanging on the bedpost, positioned to capture any conversation in the room. No safety pins, Margot announced, returning empty-handed. Never mind. I can live with a tear. For the next 3 days, Evelyn maintained her facade of docile compliance. She took her medications, hiding the suspicious blue pill each time, ate the bland food they provided, and spoke only when spoken to. All the while, the recorder captured everything. Lena's phone calls. The property transfer needs to happen before the cognitive evaluation. Yes, I've got his signature already. No, she hasn't seen the doctor yet. We're building the case. Margot's reports. She's definitely getting worse. Talks to herself. Hides things and forgets. I've documented everything like you asked. Elias's rare visits. The specialist thinks we should consider full-time care, Mom. Silver Pines has an excellent memory unit. Each night, when the house was silent, Evelyn retrieved the recorder and transferred its contents to her journal, transcribing the damning conversations word for word. But the recorder wasn't enough. She needed more proof of the documents they were altering, evidence of the life they were dismantling around her. Her opportunity came when Elias announced they'd all attend a fundraiser for the Rat of Ramd, the school's new library wing, named in Harold's honor. Even Mom should come, he told Lena. People are asking about her. Is that wise? Lena's voice dropped to a stage whisper Evelyn was clearly meant to hear from where she sat in the living room. What if she has an episode? It would look suspicious if she didn't attend something honoring Dad, Elias reasoned. We'll say she's tired and bring her home early. The event was 3 days away. Evelyn had 72 hours to prepare. The night before the fundraiser, when Margot left for her dinner break, Evelyn implemented the next phase of her plan. She'd spent weeks observing the patterns of the household, noting when Lena checked emails, when Elias reviewed papers in the study. She knew their passwords too. Lena's laptop required the same combination as her luggage: 1, 2, 3, 4. Criminally simple, but then, people who believed themselves invulnerable often were careless. Using an old laptop Harold had stored in the attic, one they didn't know existed, Evelyn connected to their Wi-Fi. The password hadn't changed since Elias set it up years ago. Elias Lena 2016. For 30 precious minutes, she photographed every screen she could access. Emails to attorneys about estate reorganization. A draft petition for guardianship citing progressive cognitive decline. Bank statements showing systematic transfers from her accounts to something called Winters Holdings LLC. Most damning was a document titled Renford Property Development, Architectural Plans, showing her home and the surrounding 3 acres transformed into luxury condominiums. Her home. Harold's legacy. Their plan all along. The old laptop had no printer, but it did have internet access. Evelyn quickly set up a new email account and sent everything to herself, then to an anonymous cloud storage service. She cleared the browsing history and returned the laptop to its hiding place, just as Margot's key turned in the door. The next day, dressed in her best outfit for the fundraiser, Evelyn wore her trusty old cardigan despite Lena's protests about it being shabby. It was Harold's favorite, she said, fingering the worn wool. What she didn't mention was the micro-recorder sewn into its lining, the backup flash drive hidden in its pocket, or the small notebook tucked into her bra. Fine, Lena conceded, with an exaggerated sigh. But people will talk. Let them talk, Evelyn thought. Soon, they'll have much more to discuss. The scent of roasted chicken filled the annex. Evelyn smoothed the tablecloth, her best linen, reserved for special occasions, and adjusted the crystal glasses Harold had given her on their 30th anniversary. Everything looks lovely, Beatrix said, arranging a centerpiece of fresh-cut flowers. The doctor's wife had been surprised by Evelyn's invitation but delighted to help. Are you sure you don't want me to stay for dinner? This is something I need to do alone, Evelyn replied, touching her friend's hand. But thank you. What she couldn't tell Beatrix was that tonight's dinner was more than a social occasion, it was a carefully orchestrated trap. After the fundraiser 3 days earlier, Evelyn had set her plan in motion. She'd pulled aside Elias's childhood friend, Thomas, now a respected local attorney, and whispered, I need legal advice. Privately, it's urgent. Thomas had come to her annex the next morning, listening in growing horror as she played select recordings, and showed him the documents she'd discovered. This is criminal, he'd said finally, his face ashen. Financial abuse, unlawful imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, not to mention the forged documents. I need your help, Evelyn had told him. But not as my lawyer. Now, as the clock struck 6, she checked her appearance in the mirror. She'd taken extra care with her makeup, covering the pallor months of stress had etched into her skin. Her silver hair was neatly pinned, and she wore the blue dress Harold had always loved. They expect a confused old woman, she told her reflection. Let's give them something else entirely. The doorbell rang precisely at 6:15. Elias stood there, Lena at his side. Behind them were two unfamiliar faces, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a younger woman carrying a leather portfolio. Mom, Elias kissed her cheek stiffly. You remember Dr. Parrish and his associate, Miss Winters? Winters. Like Lena. The connection wasn't lost on Evelyn. Of course, she lied smoothly. Please come in. Dinner's almost ready. Lena's eyes darted around the annex, noting the formal table setting with obvious surprise. This looks involved. We mentioned we were bringing guests? You did. Evelyn smiled. Another lie. The dinner invitation had specified just the two of them to discuss the future. Mrs. Renford. Dr. Parrish extended his hand. I've heard so much about you. All concerning, I'm sure. Evelyn replied, her tone light but pointed. An uncomfortable silence fell as they took their seats. Lena immediately took charge, her practiced charm on full display. Evelyn's been having some difficult days, she explained to the visitors. That's why we've asked you to join us. The safety forms you mentioned could really help everyone. Safety forms? Evelyn asked innocently, serving the roasted chicken. Miss Winters opened her portfolio. Just routine paperwork. Medical authorizations, care directives, given your situation. My situation? Evelyn repeated, pouring wine for everyone except herself. She needed perfect clarity tonight. And what situation would that be? Dr. Parrish cleared his throat. Mrs. Renford, your son has described concerning patterns of behavior, memory lapses, paranoid ideation, confusion about financial matters, all symptoms of early-stage dementia. Lena cut in smoothly. We've been documenting everything, as you suggested. Have you? Evelyn took a small bite of chicken, chewing thoughtfully. How thorough of you. Under the table, her finger pressed the recording button on her phone. Elias shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we're trying to help. These forms protect you. And us. Protection is important, Evelyn agreed. Like protecting assets. Homes. Inheritances. Lena's smile tightened. Exactly. That's why. Is that why you've been transferring my money to Winters Holdings LLC? Evelyn asked, her voice still pleasant. For protection? The room froze. Elias's fork clattered against his plate. I don't know what you're talking about. Lena recovered quickly. Elias, your mother is confused again. Am I confused about the guardianship petition too? Evelyn continued. Or the property development plans for this land? Dr. Parrish looked between them, suddenly uncertain. Perhaps we should show me the forms you brought, Evelyn interrupted, extending her hand to Miss Winters. The woman hesitated, glancing at Lena. It's okay. Lena nodded. We've discussed all this with her before. She just doesn't remember. Evelyn accepted the papers, scanning them slowly. Power of attorney. Healthcare. Proxy. Voluntary commitment to assisted living. My, how comprehensive. It's for the best, Mom, Elias said softly. You need more care than we can provide at home. You've always taken care of everything, Lena, Evelyn said, setting down the forms. Then she pressed play on her phone. Lena's voice filled the room. Elias won't even realize it's done once she signs. The house will be ours. Another clip. The trust gives us control of everything, the house, the land, her accounts. The dementia diagnosis is just formality now. And finally, the most damning, nobody questions when old people get confused. They'll believe whatever we tell them. In 6 months, nobody will even remember her. The silence that followed was absolute. Elias stared at his wife, disbelief dissolving into horror. Lena? What is this? Edited recordings, Lena snapped, her mask slipping. Completely. She's manipulating you. Am I manipulating the bank records too? Evelyn asked, sliding a folder across the table. Or the property plans? Or your emails to your sister Miss Winters here about getting rid of the old bat? Dr. Parrish stood abruptly. I think my services are not required here after all. Actually, came a new voice from the doorway. They might be needed as expert testimony. Thomas entered, followed by 2 police officers and a woman in a suit who introduced herself as Adult Protective Services. Evelyn's calm voice cut through the chaos that followed. "You said proudly, your wife put me in my place, Elias. Tell me, son, was that the grave or the nursing home?" Lena broke first. "This is ridiculous!" she shrieked, knocking over her wine glass as she stood. Red liquid bloomed across the white tablecloth like blood. "You can't possibly believe her! She's been hallucinating for months!" One of the police officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, please sit down. Do you know who I am?" Lena demanded. "I run the largest charitable foundation in this county. My husband designs buildings that house hundreds. And you're taking the word of a confused old woman?" Evelyn remained seated, her hands folded calmly in her lap. The storm she'd unleashed swirled around her, but she felt oddly peaceful. Elias hadn't said a word. He sat frozen, staring at the documents spread before him, proof of betrayal so complete it had rendered him mute. The woman from Adult Protective Services knelt beside Evelyn. "Mrs. Renford, you've been very brave. We'd like to get you somewhere safe tonight. Is there someone you could stay with?" "Beatrix is expecting my call," Evelyn replied. "She's prepared a room." Thomas, standing protectively near Evelyn, addressed the officers. "We have substantial evidence of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Given the circumstances, I recommend immediate action." "This is insane!" Lena's composure had completely shattered. Tears streaked her perfect makeup. "Elias, tell them! Tell them how she forgets things, how she accuses us of stealing her possessions, how she—" "Stop." Elias's voice was barely audible. He looked up, his face ashen. "Just stop, Lena." "What?" "The Winters Holdings, LLC. I never signed anything authorizing that." "It was for us," Lena insisted, reaching for his hand. He pulled away. "For our future. This house is worth millions with the land. We could build something amazing, my parents' home." His voice broke. "My father's legacy. Your father is dead," Lena snapped. "And she's halfway there too. Why wait years for what could be ours now?" The room fell silent. Even the officers seemed shocked by her candor. "I think we've heard enough," one of them said, producing handcuffs. "Lena Renford, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy to commit unlawful imprisonment." As they led Lena away, still protesting her innocence, Elias finally looked at his mother. The anguish in his eyes nearly broke her heart. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what she was doing." Evelyn wanted to believe him. Part of her did. But she remembered his proud voice at the dinner party. "My wife put her in her place so she'd finally shut up. You may not have known everything," she said gently, "but you chose to believe her over me. Every time." His shoulders slumped. "I'll make this right. Somehow." "Not tonight," Thomas interjected. "Tonight your mother needs rest. And frankly, the police have more questions for you." Elias nodded numbly, gathering his coat. At the door, he paused. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere safe," Evelyn replied. "Good night, Elias." After everyone left, Evelyn sat alone in the sudden quiet of her annex. Victory tasted metallic. She was free, but alone in the ruins of trust. She packed a small suitcase methodically. Toiletries, nightgown, Harold's photo, her journal of evidence, the safety deposit box key. When Beatrix arrived to collect her, Evelyn took one last look at the annex, her prison for so many months. "Ready to go?" Beatrix asked, taking her arm. "More than ready," Evelyn said. The next morning brought reporters to Beatrix's door. The Renford scandal was too juicy to ignore. Beloved local family. Prominent socialite arrested. Elderly mother rescued from abuse. Evelyn declined all interviews, but couldn't escape the whispers when she ventured out for coffee with Beatrix 3 days later. "That's her, the Renford woman. Poor thing. I didn't even know what was happening. I heard the daughter-in-law was stealing millions. What kind of son lets that happen to his own mother?" The legal proceedings moved with surprising speed. Lena, denied bail as a flight risk, faced multiple felony charges. The investigation uncovered offshore accounts, falsified medical records, and evidence that this wasn't her first attempt at such a scheme. Elias, determined to prove his ignorance of the worst offenses, cooperated fully. The prosecutors eventually offered him a deal: testimony against Lena in exchange for probation on lesser charges of negligence. He took it. 2 weeks after the dinner that changed everything, Evelyn returned to the main house, not the annex. Thomas had arranged for a security service and a legitimate home health aide who reported directly to Adult Protective Services. The first night back in Harold's house, Evelyn wandered from room to room, touching familiar surfaces, reclaiming her space inch by inch. In Harold's study, she found Elias's architectural plans for the property: luxury condominiums where generations of children had played, a parking structure where Harold's beloved oak trees stood. She fed the plans into the paper shredder, page by page. "Not in my lifetime," she whispered. Victory might taste metallic, but survival tasted like coming home. 6 weeks after the arrest that shattered Millfield's perception of the perfect Renford family, Evelyn sat in Harold's study, reclaimed now as her own. Morning light filtered through the windows, casting warm patterns across the antique desk. Her fingers hovered over the laptop Thomas had given her. "For your protection," he'd said. "Document everything." She'd been doing exactly that, but today felt different. Today, she wasn't documenting for legal purposes. Today was about something else entirely. The cursor blinked on the screen. Record video. Such a simple command. Evelyn pressed the button and stared into the small camera lens. "My name is Evelyn Renford. I am 70 years old, and 6 weeks ago, I escaped a carefully orchestrated attempt to erase me." Her voice strengthened as she continued. "I'm recording this because I've received 47 messages from people who believe they're experiencing similar situations. 47 people who recognize the patterns in my story." The trial date for Lena was still months away, but the local paper had published a feature on elder abuse, using Evelyn's case as its centerpiece. She hadn't given an interview, but court records were public. Details had emerged. "This isn't about revenge or sensationalism," she continued, looking directly into the camera. "This is about recognition, about patterns we miss until it's almost too late." For 30 minutes, she spoke about the warning signs. The small things disappearing, the gradual isolation, the subtle questioning of memory and competence. "Abuse doesn't always come with bruises," she said, her eyes clear and focused. "Sometimes it comes with breakfast, served with a smile. With medications you didn't ask for. With help you don't need but can't refuse." She uploaded the video to the channel Thomas had helped her create. The Invisible Epidemic. No fancy graphics, no dramatic music, just her face, her voice, her truth. By evening, it had 17 views. By morning, 700. 3 days later, when Beatrix came for their weekly lunch, the count stood at 28,000. "You've gone viral," Beatrix marveled, scrolling through the comments on her phone. "Listen to these. My mother experienced the same thing with my brother's wife. We intervened too late. I'm a geriatric social worker and I'm sharing this with every professional I know. I thought I was losing my mind until I saw this. Called my daughter today. Thank you." Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. "I never expected this. People respond to authenticity," Beatrix said, "and courage." That afternoon, Evelyn recorded her second video, addressing the questions flooding her inbox. How had she gathered evidence? What resources existed for those in similar situations? How could family members distinguish between genuine concern and controlling behavior? A local filmmaker emailed 3 days later. "Your story needs to reach more people." Nadia Patel wrote, "I specialize in documentaries about invisible social issues. Would you consider collaborating?" Evelyn agreed to a meeting, expecting a brief discussion. Instead, she found herself telling her story for 5 hours straight, with cameras rolling. "This isn't just about elder abuse," Nadia observed during a break. "It's about the invisibility of aging women in our society, about how easily we're dismissed, regardless of our capacity." "I never thought of it that way," Evelyn admitted. "I just knew something wrong was happening." That awareness, that certainty in the face of everyone telling you you're confused, that's remarkable, Nadia said. Many people would have eventually believed the lies. The documentary took shape over the following weeks. Nadia interviewed other survivors, experts, law enforcement. But always, she returned to Evelyn, the woman who'd outsmarted those who thought age had rendered her powerless. As filming progressed, Evelyn's online presence grew. Her simple videos, filmed in Harold's study, attracted hundreds of thousands of views. People sent their stories, some hopeful, many tragic. She read every one. Elias called in September, the first contact since his plea deal. "I saw your videos," he said, his voice hesitant. "You're helping a lot of people." Evelyn said nothing, waiting. "I know it doesn't change anything," he continued. "But I'm proud of you, Mom." The words fell between them. Inadequate, yet sincere. "Thank you," she said finally. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. It was all she could offer. In October, exactly 3 months after the dinner that exposed Lena's scheme, Nadia's documentary premiered at a small, independent theater in Millfield. The Invisible Epidemic. Elder Abuse in Plain Sight. Evelyn sat in the front row, surrounded by new friends, survivors who'd reached out, advocates who'd joined her cause, attorneys who'd taken cases pro bono after seeing her videos. On screen, her journey unfolded, not just the abuse, but the awakening that followed. The final scene showed her walking through her garden, vibrant with autumn flowers. Her narration played over the images. We're told aging means becoming less visible, less valuable, less reliable. But what if it actually means becoming more discerning, more resilient, more determined to protect not just ourselves, but others? As the credits rolled, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Evelyn stood too, acknowledging their response with a quiet dignity. Later, at the small reception, a reporter from the New York Times approached. "Mrs. Renford, your story has sparked similar revelations across the country. 6 state legislatures are now considering stronger elder protection laws. How does it feel to have created this movement?" Evelyn considered the question carefully. "I lost my family," she said finally. "But I found a voice powerful enough to protect others. That's not a movement. That's survival becoming purpose." The quote headlined their feature the following Sunday. By Monday, Evelyn's subscriber count had passed 1 million. She recorded her next video that evening, sitting in Harold's chair, her silver hair gleaming in the lamplight. Behind her hung a new sign, handcrafted by a viewer. "Silence can be rewritten." "Today," she began, looking into the camera with clear eyes, "we're going to talk about recognizing your own power at any age." 1 year to the day after the dinner that exposed Lena's scheme, Evelyn stood at the edge of her transformed garden. Once a refuge, then a reminder of confinement. It had become something else entirely, a symbol of reclamation. Stone pathways wound between raised beds bursting with herbs and flowers. Benches offered rest in dappled shade. A small fountain bubbled at the center, its gentle sound a constant reminder of continuation. The new sign at the garden entrance read simply, "The place she belongs." "It's perfect," Beatrix said, joining her at the gate. "Harold would have loved it." "Yes," Evelyn agreed. "He always said gardens were for growing more than plants." They walked together toward the main house, where voices and laughter spilled through open windows. Inside, 20 women gathered in what had once been the formal dining room, now converted into a meeting space. The support circle, as they called themselves, met weekly survivors of various forms of elder abuse, united by Evelyn's videos and Nadia's documentary. Some attended in person, others joined via the computer setup Thomas had installed. Today was special. Today marked endings and beginnings. "She's here," someone called as Evelyn entered. The chatter quieted. Nadia stood, raising a glass of sparkling cider. To Evelyn, whose courage changed laws in 8 states, and to justice, finally served. The toast acknowledged yesterday's news, Lena's sentencing to 15 years for fraud, abuse, and embezzlement. The legal journey had been exhausting, but the outcome vindicated everything Evelyn had endured. She accepted the toast with a graceful nod, then took her place at the head of the table. "We're not here to celebrate punishment," she reminded them. "We're here to celebrate survival and to plan for prevention." The meeting proceeded with its usual structured compassion. New members shared their stories. Resources were exchanged. Progress reports offered hope. Throughout, Evelyn observed more than she spoke. These women and the occasional man had formed something remarkable from shared trauma, a network of protection and awareness that stretched far beyond Millfield. "Our website had 12,000 visits this week," reported Gina, a retired web developer whose son had emptied her accounts before Evelyn's videos helped her recognize what was happening. "And the hotline received 300 calls. The advocacy training program is at capacity," added Sophia, a former judge whose niece had attempted a guardianship takeover. "We need more volunteer attorneys." Evelyn made notes, her handwriting strong and clear. The foundation they'd established, officially named The Place She Belongs, had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What had begun as her personal healing had evolved into a mission touching thousands. As the meeting concluded, a young woman approached hesitantly. Evelyn recognized her from the previous week, Teresa, whose grandmother was experiencing concerning help from a new caregiver. "We did what you suggested," Teresa said, her voice quavering with emotion. "Set up the cameras, documented everything. The police arrested him yesterday. Grandma's safe now." Evelyn embraced her. "You trusted your instincts. That's what matters." "Your videos saved her," Teresa insisted. "Saved us." Later, after everyone departed, Evelyn sat alone on her garden bench. Soft rain began to fall, but she didn't seek shelter. The gentle drops felt cleansing. Her phone buzzed with a message from Elias, his weekly check-in. Their relationship remained complicated, tentative. He'd moved across in the country after the trial, unable to face the community he'd once been celebrated within. "Thinking of you today," his message read. The foundation's work made national news again. Dad would be proud. Evelyn typed back simply, "Yes, he would. Some wounds healed cleaner than others." She slipped the phone back into her pocket and closed her eyes, letting the rain caress her face. At 71, she felt neither diminished nor defined by what had happened. The attempt to erase her had instead revealed her true dimensions to herself and to the world. A movement at the garden gate made her open her eyes. A small bird landed on the fence post, its feathers bright against the misty gray backdrop. It tilted its head, studying her with bright curiosity, then burst into unexpected song. Evelyn smiled, listening to the melody rise above the patter of rain. Life's resilience always found expression, even in the most unlikely moments. She had survived. More than that, she had transformed survival into purpose. When her son said his wife had put her in her place, he couldn't have imagined that place would become a sanctuary for thousands. That her silence, once the goal of their manipulation, would become a voice for those still struggling to be heard. The rain intensified, but Evelyn remained seated, face tilted upward, accepting the downpour as she had accepted everything else, a temporary condition in a continuing journey. "Sometimes," she whispered to the garden, to Harold's memory, to herself, "it becomes the loudest story of all." The bird took flight, disappearing into the misty distance. Eventually, Evelyn rose and walked unhurried toward the house. Her refuge, her launching point. Inside, she passed the wall where family photos once dominated. Now, interspersed among them were letters, news clippings, and photographs of women she'd helped, the extended family she'd never anticipated. In her study, she settled before the camera she used for her weekly videos. Tonight's topic was already prepared: rebuilding after betrayal. She switched on the light, adjusted her position, and looked directly into the lens with clear, knowing eyes. "When trust breaks," she began, "we don't just repair it. We rebuild it differently, stronger in the wounded places." Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm, washing the garden clean, nourishing new growth in soil that had once known only shadows.